Welcome to ISRA League's Grand Touring Championship, brought to you by Z1 Simwheel. This is Florida After Dark 105, Race 11 of Season 6. I'm Daniel Quaroni, and with me in the announcing booth are Anthony Muniz.
Great to be back with you guys tonight.
And Brian Carey.
Really excited for this race.
Well, we come from a pretty intense race, and here we look at the standings from the season so far. David Serrois, I think, pretty much has this one in the bag. I mean, he'd have to really mess up the last 4 races to let Mark Payne surpass him into first. Brian Carey, though, could still defeat Mark for a second-place spot. In GT1, Timothy Stoll definitely has the championship wrapped up. And still, though, a good fight between Gilles and Marty for second there. And looking down at 4th and through 6th, that's a battle that could still be waged. And still, in GT2, that's where the fun comes in. Todd Carver and James Cullen separated by just 1 point. So anyone's guess there. Wyatt Foster, a pretty long 47 points down, although if he makes all of the last races, he's pretty much guaranteed to win them. And that would rack up some good points for him. And we're going to switch to the map in just a moment. Brian Carey?
All right, Sebring International Raceway. We got 17 turns on this track here. The two that I'm going to focus on the most, as you can see them on the map here. Well, turn 7, the hairpin, there's going to be a lot of passing action going to there. Then the back area, 8 through about 16, which is Le Mans. A lot of twisty bits, so it's going to be hard for some of the cars to get by the faster cars get by the slower cars. But Le Mans is probably the most important corner on the track. Leads you down the Allman straightaway to Sunset Bend, and Sunset Bend is a signature corner of this track. It's fast, it's bumpy, multiple lines possible, and some of those lines can cause you to hit a bump and head into the wall really quickly. So a lot of care to be taken through there, and a lot of action heading into Sunset and out of Sunset during this race.
All right, now let's check the qualifying. In LMP2, we had Chris Damron Jr. on pole with a 1:45.278, followed by Jeremy Burris, David Serrois in 3rd, Mike Kelly 4th, Carlos Passos 5th, then Anthony Muniz, Chuck Chambliss, Jerry Morsdorf, John Kuzland, and Brent Briles rounding out the top 10 in LMP2.
Alright guys, for GT1, Eric Palacio took the pole with a 154 point flat. Timothy Stoll was behind 9/10 of a second with a 154.9. John Middleton, Don Hunter, and Colin McLean were the top 5. Julio Palacio, Trevor Hill, Evgeny Guerrernin, Mike Taylor, Ryan Huff were the top 10.
All right, and in G2, the 4 GT2s, Wyatt Foster not on the grid today, so Todd Carver taking the pole at a 1:58.267. And unfortunately for Craig Hunter, still can't crack that pole position. Second place again at a 1:58.732. James Cullen, James Mines, and Daniel Gralty running out the top 5, with Luke Poulin, Matthew Boyd, Jamar Green, Clark Reed, and Dylan Schmidt rounding out the top 10 in the 4 GTs.
All right, let's take a look at Chris Damron Jr.'s pole-setting lap here. Damron Jr. crosses the start-finish, begins his qualifying lap. You can see the car riding all over those bumps. Listen to him, he just barely lifted for turn 1, but almost flat through the entire thing. And then into turn 3. And he doesn't carry too much speed there to get a good exit here out of 5 onto Big Bend and the straight to the Mobile Bridge. And coming up here for the braking zone for the hairpin. See how he cuts in nice and close so that he can get on the gas as soon as possible. All through here is going to be flat out. No trouble at all in the HPD. Braking into Cunningham. Once again, taking that nice and close to the apex and getting on the acceleration as soon as he can. That's the key. Oh, and getting a little bit sideways there through Tower. And braking now. He is heading into Le Mans now. And using every inch of track, all that runoff space that was available. Heading down the very long back straight. towards Sunset Bend. Let's watch when he brakes. There. Very, very late. And you can see he's keeping fairly close to the center of the turn. And now back down and across the start-finish. Welcome to ISRA League's Grand Touring Championship, brought to you by Z1 Simwheel. This is Florida After Dark 105, Race 11 of Season 6. I'm Daniel Quaroni, and with me in the announcing booth are Anthony Muniz.
Great to be back with you guys tonight.
And Brian Carey.
Really excited for this race.
Well, we come from a pretty intense race, and here we look at the standings from the season so far. David Serrois, I think, pretty much has this one in the bag. I mean, he'd have to really mess up the last 4 races to let Mark Payne surpass him into first. Brian Carey, though, could still defeat Mark for a second-place spot. In GT1, Timothy Stoll definitely has the championship wrapped up. And still, though, a good fight between Gilles and Marty for second there. And looking down at 4th and through 6th, that's a battle that could still be waged. And still, in GT2, that's where the fun comes in. Todd Carver and James Cullen separated by just 1 point. So anyone's guess there. Wyatt Foster, a pretty long 47 points down, although if he makes all of the last races, he's pretty much guaranteed to win them. And that would rack up some good points for him. And we're going to switch to the map in just a moment. Brian Carey?
All right, Sebring International Raceway. We got 17 turns on this track here. The 2 that I'm going to focus on the most, as you can see them on the map here. Well, turn 7, the hairpin, there's going to be a lot of passing action going to there. Then the back area, 8 through about 16, which is Le Mans. A lot of twisty bits, so it's going to be hard for some of the cars to get by, the faster cars get by the slower cars. But Le Mans is probably the most important corner on the track. Leads you down the Allman straightaway to Sunset Bend. And Sunset Bend is a signature corner of this track. It's fast, it's bumpy, multiple lines possible, and some of those lines can cause you to hit a bump and head into the wall really quickly. So a lot of care to be taken through there, and a lot of action heading into Sunset and out of Sunset during this race.
All right, now let's check the qualifying. In LMP2, we had Chris Damron Jr. on pole with a 1:45.278, followed by Jeremy Burris, David Serrois in 3rd, Mike Kelly 4th, Carlos Passos 5th, then Anthony Muniz, Chuck Chambliss, Jerry Morsdorf, John Kuzland, and Brent Briles rounding out the top 10 in LMP2.
Alright guys, for GT1, Eric Palacio took the pole with a 154 point flat. Timothy Stoll was behind 9/10 of a second with a 154.9. John Middleton, Don Hunter, and Colin McLean were the top 5. Julio Palacio, Trevor Hill, Evgeny Guerrernin, Mike Taylor, Ryan Huff were the top 10.
All right, and in G2, the 4 GT2s, Wyatt Foster not on the grid today, so Todd Carver taking the pole at a 1:58.267. And unfortunately for Craig Hunter, still can't crack that pole position. Second place again at a 1:58.732. James Cullen, James Mines, and Daniel Gralty running out the top 5, with Luke Poulin, Matthew Voigt, Jamar Green, Clark Reed, and Dylan Schmidt rounding out the top 10 in the 4 GTs.
All right, let's take a look at Chris Damron Jr.'s pole-setting lap here. And now let's have a quick chat about this race. Now, obviously, this is our first night race here this season, and that's going to be a huge factor because unlike some of the other tracks, for example, an oval where there's pretty good lighting, this track is dark around most of it, and all you've really got are the reflective strips on the edges of the track to tell you where the end of the corner and the apex and the exit are. So I think that was going to be a pretty big factor.
Yeah, from testing, unfortunately I wasn't able to make this race myself, but from testing, the hardest part, especially when running by yourself, when you're running in a crowd, at least you can kind of get a gauge off the other cars that are running around you from their lights, but when you're running by yourself, if you're maybe 5 seconds away from someone, very, very easy to lose your marks, put a wheel off, and maybe end your race early, so a lot of care is going to be needed to be taken by these drivers.
And we can see the LMPs heading around the last bend onto the front straight. As you mentioned, that very bumpy turn where even what would be a good line can send you onto some bumps. These HPs very, very, very sensitive to that. And here we've got the green flag.
I was hoping to get around the first lap, everyone in one piece here, because like visibility, even in the start, lots of lights, a lot of distractions, even more so than most races, which are hectic to begin with. So we'll see how this first couple corners play out.
And hopefully we'll get a view on board of turn 1 at some point during this race, because that's where you can see that the wall that you just skim is come so close and it's so dark that it's really, really pretty terrifying as you drive around it.
Especially when you add a slower GT car into the mix, if you're diving around the outside of making that pass, it's you're really on the edge right there.
Yeah, knowing from racing here previously in other series, and especially at night, turn 1 is the speed difference between the LMPs and the 4GTs is so intense, and because of the lighting issue, you're talking about closing speeds upwards of 100 kilometers an hour in some cases, and if that car ahead makes a small mistake, really, once the LMP commits to that corner, well, actually any car commits to that corner, you're just holding on and waiting to the corner exit. There's not a lot you can do until you get to that exit curve, so watch for that as this race unfolds.
We were just on board with Daniel Qualroni in his LMP, and you can see the track looked fairly well lit, but that's only because, and this is Carlos Passos coming out of Le Mans. Looks like he got sideways. He's going to lose 2 or 3 positions going down the back straight, maybe even come under pressure from Jerry Morsdorf as his top speed will definitely suffer. But right now the track's fairly well lit because of these bright lights from the LMP cars, but once they get a little bit more spread out, there's going to be almost no light, or ambient lighting at least, so this is going to get a lot more difficult as the laps tick down.
Yeah, as you can see, if you look at Luke Poulin's car here, everything behind him is pretty dark.
Yeah, the one thing you really need to watch out for, actually, is if you happen to make contact with another car on the wall and you damage your lights, that's it, they're gone. They're not coming back the rest of the race, and that would make things extremely difficult, especially when running by yourself.
We see Joe Mark Green here taking a very inside line, trying to force Clark lead very wide and to get a better exit. Oh, and on board Colin McLean, I think he's going to have a pass. Yeah, but he's got the inside for the next turn.
Ooh, I think there was contact there.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
You can really hear Colin fighting the throttle, or feathering the throttle, fighting for grip, or to find where that limit of grip is as he goes through those initial turns, I think they're 2 to 5, and on board now with Trevor Hill. Let's see how his car is handling as they head down to this corner. It looks like he's going to poking his nose on the inside.
Oh,
that
was contact for sure.
Yeah, that was definitely contact. He took he tried to brake too deep going into that corner, made contact with Evgeny Guerrero. Looks like there wasn't too much damage. Both of those drivers were able to continue going, but that's definitely going to set them back a bit in terms of speed.
Yeah, definitely too aggressive a move there. He wasn't nearly close enough up on Evgeny's door to make that move. But also, you have to think about the turn that he was approaching. It was a very tight turn, and there's not a whole lot of room for interpretation in how to take that turn.
Yeah, exactly. Also, I want to point out, too, that Trevor Hill from our last broadcast, one of the protagonists in the Ford GT category, his first race in the Corvette, so getting used to racing the higher horsepower and higher grip cars, as you see Ryan Corns slip by Daniel Qualroni there. And here comes some lights. Oh, your cars. Yeah, like I didn't have enough trouble identifying cars now, then we're just going to be seeing headlights on the straightaway. It looks like we have a Ford GT, which...
I believe that's Daniel Gralti, and he is currently running in the 4th position. You can see the top line speed helping those Corvettes to get past them. Here's a nice string of Corvettes right now. This is probably 4th to 8th or 9th position. These guys are still really well bunched up, I believe. Ooh, and who was that? I think that was Marty Jeffries, who nearly lost it coming out of turn 5.
Yeah, this track is such a momentum track, I believe, in all classes of cars. That you noticed that earlier when Carlos Passos came out wide out of Le Mans there, that he just got destroyed going down to a sunset. He lost so much speed, and a lot of the track is like that. You really need to carry your speed through the corners. Not a lot of opportunity to crate speed, if you will. I mean, you really got to take what you have going into the corner and let it run through the corner. And if you miss that, you pinch the steering, get a little loose, whatever. It's going to hurt you a lot. So, I mean, especially early on in the race, guys are pushing. They're trying to find their rhythm and the light too. I mean, you're going to see a lot of mistakes and a lot of that kind of action happening here. So.
And that's especially critical for the LMP cars because they lack on the top end speed when compared to especially the Corvettes. When you get on something like the front straight going into turn 1 or the Ullman straight, if you get off of turn 16 or 17 bad, that's really going to affect you going into those long straightaways.
With the dark track here, you can really see how the front ends of these LMPs are bouncing as they head down the straight. And that's
the headlights are really exaggerating the effect, aren't they?
And that's all the bumpiness of Sebring. It's a completely flat track except for the numerous bumps all over it.
Mm-hmm.
60 years old, that concrete there.
Yeah, well, Silverstone in England, I mean, they've had a lot of upgrades, but basically Sebring and Silverstone, I mean, are two very similar tracks and such that they're basically laid out in old airfields. So Sebring in particular, Silverstone's got upgrades, like, you know, I mean, multiple upgrades since back in the late 40s, early 50s when it started. Sebring is, well, some upgrades. I mean, we're looking at basically the same surface configuration that they've had for, like Daniel said, like we're upwards of 40 years now, if not more.
Yep, actually this year they celebrated their 60th 12 Hours of Sebring, so this is basically the exact same track that they had, or the exact same racing service rather, that they've had when they first started. I mean, they've changed the configuration, but it's still the same surface.
Yeah, it looks like John Middleton missed his turnoff there and had to find his way back to the interstate. He was way offline there.
And it really makes you wonder how many more years they can continue to run it without smoothing it out somewhat, because at some point it's just going to become unraceable by some of these less tolerant cars.
Yeah, especially in the prototypes, turn 17 is brutal on those suspension, so you gotta wonder how long. It's part of the character of this track, but how long is that really going to last until you come to a point where you're actually breaking car suspension because of the bumps are so big?
Well, it looks like we got someone off there, and was that Jeremy Burris? It looked like a prototype. I'm not sure who it was.
Yeah, it was a prototype, and it was mostly yellow cars, so it's either Jeremy Burris or I think Brent Briles has a yellow car as well, but I'm pretty sure it was Jeremy Burris that looked quite yellow.
We've lost him from scoring, so...
Yep.
Okay, yep, you're right. I just saw that update. So for the LMP2 class, Jeremy Burris is not the leader. Chris Damron Jr. is currently leader, followed by David Serrois in second, Chuck Chambliss in third, Anthony Munoz in fourth, and John Kuzlin will round out the top 5.
You see Jeremy's back in the timing screen there, and he's dropping back according to the timing, so we'll let that sort out and see if we can catch any word from the pits on that, but right now we'll head back to some Corvette action with John Middleton running down Julio Placio for third place.
And back to the Snyder-McLeish battle. We've been watching that for a little while and haven't really mentioned. As always here at ISRA, we focus on the best battles, not necessarily the top runners. Actually, that is Jeremy Burris in the background there, so if that was him losing it on turn 1, he's back on track at least.
Keep an eye out to see. Well, this is quite a bold move, and that is Timothy Stoll into the hairpin over Gilles Moret. That is a great move. You can see that there's really just nothing Gilles could do but allow Stoll to go by.
And even from up here on the helicopter, you can hear the tires squeal as they head around.
Mm-hmm.
Now, hopefully we'll get a view of some 4 GTs soon, and you'll get treated to the glowing brake discs up front, right around the hairpin particularly. As we jump up to the battle for 4th, this is Carlos... no, I'm sorry, this is Anthony Muniz ahead of John Kuzund.
You can see Carlos Passo's just behind John Kuzund there, so this is quite a tight battle for 4th, 5th, and 6th. Well, I guess it's not a battle for 6th, is it? Kuzund looking like he might make a move and going into 17. Didn't quite have the momentum, but he might have it coming out of the corner.
Although Passo's looking to make a move on Kuzund, he's drafting right up alongside him. Or rather, right up behind him, just as Tim McLeish is on Lance Snyder, as they are about to enter turn 17.
Now, as we're talking about guys switching classes of cars, Tim McLeish had a run quick in the 4 GTs recently, decided to go back to the LMPs, and his battles with Lance Snyder had been pretty standard over the weeks they were running the same class, so I'm sure Lance is happy to have his old sparring partner back.
Oh wow, look at that. Trevor Hill getting a great run on John Middleton. Although it looks like when it came down to the important part, the exit onto the straight, that Middleton did pull off a better exit.
I'm going to have to get used to the fact that Trevor's running the Corvette now. I'm so used to calling him out in the 4 GT that it's like, wow, he's really keeping up with them.
And calling him sideways.
Oh, no. Wow. That was a bit of a moment for those guys.
Yes,
Ryan Corns was off the track there, so I don't know if he made contact or if he was just taking avoiding action.
No, I think that was just avoiding action. Decided to dive off into the grass to make sure he didn't hit McLean as he was spinning sideways. Looked like Qualroni was also able to avoid damage there, but he had to definitely slow up and dive into the grass to avoid him.
Well, I can tell you, it worked out pretty well. McLean just stayed on the outside, so even though he spun and rotated sideways, he was far enough towards the outside of the turn that I was able to get by without really any trouble at all. So Ryan taking the brunt of the pain on that one. Fortunately, no real pain.
Yeah, that was from our earlier daytime race of the season here at Sebring. I was having a good run up towards the front there and running pretty strong in second place, only to have a car spin out ahead of me and not able to avoid it. So you can imagine it'd be doubly hard in the dark, and you just kind of hold on and pray in those circumstances. But as soon as it's over, you got to get back to racing.
Now you could see Bryles actually braked very, very early for 17. He was hoping to make a good exit, and it looks like he did a pretty good job, but not good enough to get past Morsdorf.
Hey, there's no team orders there for the Whoop-Ass Racing team. They are fighting hard, and they continue to fight hard as they have for the most recent races in my memory anyways.
And that's race leader David Serrois. I'm sorry, that's actually second place David Serrois getting around Don Norris lap down.
This is a good view of some dark track and headlights. As you can see, there's occasionally some track lighting as you pass by, but even the headlights really don't illuminate the track that much. They do a better job of catching the reflective surfaces on the side of the track and the walls and potentially the other cars, but really they're not doing a lot there. I mean, you can see headlights, and you can really see these actually the paint schemes of these cars really do shine when they go under the lights here. It's very, very neat, get to highlight the quality of the job that I had mentioned earlier in earlier races, the quality of the paint schemes that the drivers in the ISRA run with here. Lance Snyder's got nice blue there. I mean, it's good, but
very detailed.
Overall, pretty good quality.
He does have some rotary engine rings there on the side of his car if you look closely.
I always thought those were handcuffs, but I guess that makes more sense.
Apologies, they are the pistons rather than the rings. They're just assembled in a ring formation. Alright, let's see what we've got here. Trevor Hill still on the back of John Middleton. He's alongside, though, now, and he's got the inside line.
John Middleton going to have the inside going into this corner.
And that's... Whoa, look at those brakes.
Yeah, they really shine in the nighttime races. Yeah, and just didn't quite have it. There's still plenty of time left for him to make that up, but we'll expect to see those two battling for most of the race.
Now, one of the things I want to point out there, too, that some of you may have noticed, especially if you, say, tried to search for the Sebring 12 Hours that was on the weekend and found this video instead, and aren't familiar with iRacing, but one of the key components that is unique to internet racing is, as you can see, John Middleton was flashing in and out. Now, he wasn't warping through time and space. What is happening is his latency on his connection was coming in and out, which makes racing close kind of difficult, as there's Don Norris off in the background, but close racing is kind of difficult, and we have drivers from all over the world, so if you have a driver from the same region of the country, the latency is almost non-existent. You can really tell, but some of our drivers come from Europe, come from Australia, and you really see that kind of thing highlighted more with those drivers. Now, John Middleton and Trevor Hill are from roughly the same region, and what was happening there is just John Middleton's connection, for whatever reason, was cutting in and out a little bit, causes him to flash, so, I mean, don't be alarmed. It's relatively normal, but if it starts happening too often, then part of our kind of gentleman's agreement in this league is you kind of don't race someone too hard to avoid a accidental collision because you can't see where they are. And if Dan can post-production can cue up the More You Know music, that'd be great, but if not, that's okay too.
All right, Hill getting alongside, and this is where it's going to count, heading down the straight. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought they were one turn or two turns ahead of where they were, so still Middleton staying ahead.
Oh, we're back on board with the pass master, Mike Kelly. He's behind Brent Briles right now, who's behind John Kuzland. I'm not sure how Brent Briles got in there, but looks like Jerry Mooresdorf has dropped back behind, probably just Mike Kelly now, but Mike Kelly, if you remember from Phillip Island, was putting off some pretty amazing passing maneuvers and has been running really well of recent races. So let's see if he can start making some moves here and move up the field.
Oh, Hill getting sideways and oh no, and getting collected by, that was Julio Palacio, I believe.
Yeah, that was a mass impact. I'm sure Palacios probably, well, he's driving off a lot better than I would expect him after an impact like that.
That, people, was an Excedrin headache. That was a big hit.
Wow, Pasos getting an incredible run there, but had to check up a little bit as there wasn't quite enough room to run the 3 wide that he wanted to run.
Yeah, it's one of the art of getting around some of the slower traffic. Is you can see Muniz there was taking just enough of the inside to get past a slower car, not giving Carlos Pasos the opportunity to get a run going between them, so he had to check up a little bit. Lost his momentum again, like we mentioned momentum before, and can make the pass. But as you can see, there we go. There's Mike Kelly past John Kuzland. So Mike Kelly moving forward yet again.
Oh. And Brent looked like he was going to lose it. He kept it together, but went off the track and, well, lost 3 spots.
Yeah, it's a tough one for Brent there, but again, Mike Kelly's picking up another place. So honestly, I don't remember where he qualified because I don't have the GT or the LMP results in front of me, but it looks like Mike Kelly up into 6th place. He's 12 seconds behind Carlos Pasos, so that battle won't be engaging anytime soon, but there are a couple pit stops to go and an hour 25 left, so lots can still happen.
Yeah, well, Mike Kelly qualified in 4th, so he must have had some sort of spin off the track at some point, fell back, so now he's trying to fight his way back up. He's made up quite a few spots because we've seen him as low as 8th. So I'm assuming he got even farther than that, so good of him to keep fighting his way back up.
I feel that he likes to challenge himself a little bit, so he did that at a VIR, I believe, too, where he dropped way back and then fought his way back up. So
Yeah, starting in 4th isn't challenging enough for him, so he thought he'd spin off and make things a little more interesting.
Well, his teammates in other classes with championship leader Timothy Stahl and perennial frontrunner Wyatt Foster, so I'm not going to say that he's feeling jealous of his teammates' success, but occasionally, he wants to get in there and make some noise, so that's a good way to do it. Of course, getting 2 wins on the trot there earlier in the season, or a couple races ago, is another good way to do it as well.
We saw momentum come into play there again, coming off Le Mans. Qualroni had much better run coming off than Ryan Corns there, who got held up behind that GT car, and saw that Corns gave a little bit more room, allowed Qualroni to take more of his momentum down the back straight and then get by going into turn 17.
Yeah, you can see Stephen Clark there in the Corvette. That's one of those situations where you're like, oh my god, what do I do? I've got 2 LMPs. Yeah. He's got higher top speed, so he's going to get to sunset first, and going 2 wide through there is no problem for most cars, but 3 wide gets a little sketchy, especially if someone catches a bump too hard.
That's one of those moments when you just go into the fetal position and hold your line and say, don't hit me.
Luckily for most race cars nowadays, the fetal position is kind of the effective position of the driving, so you're still able to keep your feet on the pedals in those cases. Actually, if you were to look at the ultrasound of race drivers as babies, they were probably in more of a racing position anyway than the traditional fetal position, but that's kind of a side note, and we'll get back to the racing here.
Well, this is a battle for 2nd place between Craig Hunter and James Cullen. And you can also see Todd Carver, the leader, not too far ahead of these guys either, just maybe about a 1.5 seconds ahead. So this is still a very close battle between the GT2 cars.
Yeah, GT gets suddenly way more competitive when Wyatt Foster isn't on the grid, so let's enjoy it while it's here, guys. Well, it looks like Muniz has run down Chuck Chambliss and is right on his tails. They're coming around the Corvette. Chuck has been unfortunately struggling recently in a lot of the races, but running 3rd place right now is a fantastic pace for him. Chuck Chambliss always a very quick driver, but just things haven't been coming together for him this season, so good to see him up front battling with Muniz, who's also running a few places higher than he traditionally runs, so good to see some of those guys running up front. And again, when I was worried about worrying what the cars are, I can see we're heading into Coulier, I believe. No, wait, no, that's up towards Le Mans here, I think. I apologize, when it's dark, the cars are hard to spot, but the corners are 10 times harder to spot, so I'll figure it out by the end of the race. There's James Cullen with his fire wheels, desperately trying to get back in touch with his championship rival, Todd Carver, who's leading right now, and Craig Hunter is unceremoniously driving in 2nd place right now, so James really trying to pressure him, but there's an hour and 21 minutes left, so and only about 3 seconds separating the top 3 cars, so no one's in a particular hurry right now. 19 seconds back to Daniel Gralty in 4th place. As we're back on board with Muniz right now chasing down Chuck Chambliss. Good view as we head down out of turn 6, which is Big Bend, into turn 7, the hairpin. See if Muniz can, well, we're off board again, but see if we can try to catch at some point a good run on the onboard so we can go through some of the corners and kind of what they look like to the drivers and get a good idea of what they're facing during this race. Because in all honesty, once you get running, I mean, you know the track, you kind of know where your marks are, and a lot of it you're running under rhythm, but when you're battling someone like this, it kind of throws it off a little bit. Oh, and it goes inside of Chambliss. Didn't quite make it stick, and Carlos Passos is going to try to attack here, but Yeah, I mean, just to get a good idea, like you learn after a while where the corners are, and racing in the dark, it becomes less and less of a handicap as you go through the laps. I mean, you'd be surprised what you can do. It's almost like muscle kind of sense memory of where everything is.
Yeah, once you get into a rhythm, driving at night, it's almost like you're not racing at day at all. Oh, and that's a move right there.
Chuck Chambliss just getting passed by a couple guys. Looks like Carlos Pasol's made some contact with him. Hopefully he's not too damaged there. I think he's just trying to follow him in the draft. I don't think he's listing to the one side, but we'll see in the next couple corners. And Don Hunter in the Corvette doing his best to stay wide but not lose too much speed.
And I have Chambliss pulling into the pit, so apparently he does feel that there's some sort of damage there from that incident with Pasos.
And my commentator's curse strikes again as I started singing the praise of Chuck. He is now in the pits, hopefully not repairing damage, hopefully just taking an early first stop. But as we are starting to get into roughly the first pit window, a lot of different options here. We have a hour 45 race, so basically you're looking at about 3 stops. I think some guys might be able to make it on 2, especially if there's a yellow flag somewhere along the line, or if you conserve a lot of fuel. But for a 3-stopper, Chuck is well within the window, so hopefully that's all it is.
Yeah, we're about to that time for a pit stop, so we could see some position shuffling coming about here pretty soon. At least for LMPs, of course, the GT cars can run for close to an hour or so, a little bit under on a full load of fuel. I will get my words out. As we can see, Tim McLeish and Lance Snyder are still battling. I think they've been battling for pretty much the entire race, haven't they?
I think that's that's a battle that's been going on in many previous races. And like I mentioned before, I knew Lance was upset that that Tim had gone down to the Ford GT there, but looks like these guys are having a lot of fun. They're battling for 12th position right now, but 12th position, 5th position, sometimes 1st position, doesn't really matter if you're having a good battle, and this certainly is one of those.
And speaking of a battle for first position, this is one right here. Craig Hunter looking to chase down Todd Carver in GT2. Looks like Craig Hunter looks like he's managed to pull a bit of a gap between himself and James Cullen, but based on timing and scoring, they're still quite close. Oh, and this is Chuck Chambliss, so he's back out of the pits. I guess hopefully. It looks like Qualroni's a little bit slow going down the back straight too. Well, maybe not. Maybe just got a little loose coming out of 16.
So Daniel Qualroni is running a little slower as Lance Snyder and Tim McLeish go around the outside. See if Qualroni goes into the pits.
Okay. Well, he's heading into the pits, so.
Yeah, actually checking my race notes here and potentially asking Daniel himself, as he coincidentally happens to be in the announcing booth with us, if you didn't notice that name before, but would you be able to tell us what happened, Daniel?
Yeah, a small incident there, some contact with Julio Palacios' car. I had a little misunderstanding about when I was going to get around him, and then I put my left wheels on the grass and accelerated and slid right in front of him.
And what Daniel means by small contact is a terrible fireball of carnage. But no, actually, no, it was just one of those deals, especially in the night racing here. It's very, very easy to, in the daytime, to hit all your marks perfectly. And if you put a wheel off in the wrong place, it's unfortunately going to pitch you around. So tough break for our colleague Daniel here. But as the show goes on, the race must go on. And we come back with James Cullen, Craig Hunter, and Todd Carver battling hard for first place in the 4 GTs. And in all honesty, I'm really impressed by these Todd Carver and James Cullen. I mean, every so often you'll have someone like Wyatt Foster come in and really put the pace down in the Ford GT, but race in and race out. Todd Carver and James Callan are always up near the front, and Craig Gunter as well. And, that is not the racing line, Brent, but he comes on a little bit.
You made it work.
That is using all the track, folks, and then some.
And it didn't seem to lose all that much time by doing it either. So I guess however you can get around the track without crashing anyone else, go for it.
Yeah, I'm guessing he was able to carry more speed out the exit and then just let up off the throttle on the straight, and it evened out.
Yeah, going through turn 1 there, as you're on board with Tim McLeish, I'll point it out right now. Watch the bump as you get right about here.
There it was.
Right there. You saw that? It's basically, you didn't really hit it that hard there, but depending on the line you take, you can really contact that very hard. And in Brent's situation there, what most likely happened, and I know this from experience having done it dozens of times, is you hit that bump so hard. You can keep your steering lock on and try to make the corner, but the chance that your back end's going to come around and send you off to the wall is really high. So you straighten the steering, take the grass, because there's a little bit of runoff room there, straighten it out, come back to the track, and live another day. You'll lose a couple seconds for sure, but better lose a couple seconds than backing into the wall and end your race for good.
Especially with this being a long race, better to lose a little bit of time instead of the whole race by wrecking your car.
That's one of the things I was noticing during testing is, again with the Ford GT and the Corvette, they experience the same problems, but they're a little bit more, they're not as stiffly sprung and suspension dependent, I guess is the right word, as the LMPs. And the key to the LMP setting up here is, in all honesty, is to get through that first turn as smoothly as possible, because if you get through that first turn, the rest of the track can kind of fall into place. You'll make minor adjustments for balance and whatnot, but really, if you set up the car for every other corner but the first turn, that first turn is going to be a nightmare. It's going to be a nightmare every time. So it's setup-wise, it's probably the most key corner on the track, even more so than Sunset. Sunset, there's actually a magic line, well, not so magic, but a line down the middle about a car width and a half off the apex where you can run through and you barely feel any bumps at all. For some reason, on either side of that line, it gets pretty bumpy around the mid-corner through Sunset. And you have to watch that in all cars, but if you can hit it right, you go through, you can carry a lot more speed, and it's a lot safer for you, but it's really, really hard to hit that every time. Turn 1, you're pretty much hitting that bump almost every time you go through there. And guys, you know who these two guys are? I haven't seen them too much here.
I don't know. I mean, I think I remember seeing them maybe once before, but...
Yeah, I remember something about a blue car, and anyways, no, we are back again in the battle with Tim McLeish and Lance Snyder. Nose to tail, they've been that way since 1 hour 45 at the start of the race, and they continue to be that way. So I don't think either of them have been in the pits yet, but that should be coming soon, and see if that shakes things up a bit. Give Tim a chance to drive ahead of Lance for a little bit and see if Lance can keep pace. Also like to keep in mind, too, that this is the first race I've been broadcasting on with a team here that I actually haven't taken a part in. So, while I'm familiar with some of the events of the race, it's kind of a fresh perspective to get it the first time and see how everything, all the drama unfolds, if you will.
Here's some close battling going on right now. Brent Briles, stuck his nose out on the inside of John Kuslin, wasn't able to make a move. But this is the overall race leader, Chris Damron Jr., coming out of the pits after making his first stop.
Yep, and he's behind David Serrois. Now, I believe Chris, he went into the pits with about a 20-second lead, so I'm assuming Serrois hasn't hit it yet. However, there may have been a few other things too that with a lot of traffic, sometimes that 20 seconds lead seems like a lot, but if you have it off, that was not caught by the cameras, then that could account for their relative positions. So we'll wait a couple laps to see how that shakes out.
I'm going to guess and say that Serrois is actually going to be the race leader once pit stops cycle through, because currently Mike Kelly is being shown with John Kuslin and Brent Briles right behind him, then David Serrois and Chris Damron. So judging by that, I'm going to say that everyone but Mike Kelly, Kuslin, and Briles have taken their first pit stop, so it should cycle around back to Serrois.
And if I recall correctly from we'll call it the pit lane reporter. I think that Chris Damron may have actually had an issue with the fuel intake on his pit stop, so he may have had to come in for a second time, which could account for the difference in position right now.
Yeah, I know that he had built himself up quite a large lead, and this is actually both of those drivers, Sirwa and Damron. Damron thought about making a move, but it looks like Sirwa might have a little bit higher top speed than Damron, so we'll have to see how that will play out. Both of those guys getting through 17 very well.
Now these guys had I won't really call it an incident back in Road America, but a disagreement about some of the racing that went on, so I'm sure that that might be playing on both their minds as they're battling here, as they typically find themselves in roughly the same part of the track, being always close to the front of the field.
Yep. Yeah, both of these guys are super talented drivers. They're both really quick, but the old saying, forgive and forget, but even if you try and do that, you've always got that, you know, little incident in the back of your mind saying, hey, this happened. So maybe I should race this guy a little bit differently. So it looks like both of these guys are being really clean and courteous so far. I'm sure it'll stay that way the rest of the race.
Now, one thing I could say about that too is, well, incidents like that, like actually anything, like we're race 11 now in this season, you get to know each driver's tendencies, and both good and bad. You kind of have like a mental book on each one of these drivers to know what to expect from them in any given situation. And based on that, and especially the lap traffic, some of the slower classes, myself running in the LMP, you kind of know where each driver is going to place himself going into one corners. And some guys will let you ease off a lot going into the corner, let you take the inside. Some of them will go hard into the corner, knowing that you'll get a better exit and letting them go off. And knowing that before you get to them is remembering that accurately is a huge help when trying to lap some slower cars, and also racing with guys in your class. If you know how they're going to race you and kind of what to expect as far as passing, and I can tell from experience too that David Sirwa in particular, very, very smooth, very when I say clean, more of like just a clean driving style. He doesn't make mistakes. He always very deliberate where he puts the car. You kind of know what he's going to do. Where Chris Damron he's on attack all the time. And as long as you know that when you're racing with them, you can drive and defend accordingly. As you can see, David's just kind of taking his line. Chris is kind of darting in and out, trying to see if he can force David into a mistake, which won't work with David Sirwa. He's a very cool customer there. Also knowing, too, he's the back of your mind hoping that, you know, Chris driving aggressive like he is right now, he'll run into the back of you, but experience has shown that that's, well, possible, still relatively unlikely, and as long as you run a clean line and give each other room, then both those two very contrasting styles will work out in the end. And I think those guys know that now, and the last couple laps have had a very, very good race.
Even as you say that, though, it looked an awful lot to me like David Sirwa was taking some fairly wide apexes there as we watched them before.
Well, knowing where those corners are, I noticed in the first corner and going through Sunset, and from my experience anyway, and me taking somewhat similar lines, is you're trying to avoid those bumps. So geometrically, you're not taking the optimal line. However, at Sebring, because of the nature of the track, sometimes that's the fastest line. So, ooh, that was close. That was a Daniel Gralti, I believe, in the Ford GT there, kind of pinching Damron a little bit as he was battling with Sirwa. It looks like they all got around that okay. Just, you know, maybe a few soiled underpants, but other than that, cars seem to be okay.
Let's see, that allows Matthew Voigt to get by. That is for third place in Ford GT.
So you can see just as he cut out with Chris Damron there, right at the apex, he hit that bump rather severely, which cut his momentum a little bit. Sirwa kind of took a tighter line than he normally does there, but on that corner, watch turn one here as well. Sirwa's probably not going to go right up against the wall. Very, very wide. Yeah, Damron was right on that yellow line. David Sirwa was about half a car width to a car width away from that line. And on this track, that's pretty much exclusively down to the bumps as and one of the Ford GTs off. I believe that was James Cullen, who's battling for position right now. This is an onboard shot that I was hoping to get here. Now, Damron came right up in his gearbox there, but slid a little bit. That's where the momentum comes in. As you can see, Surratt pulling away a couple car lengths. Damron Jr. is sticking right with them, so not losing a lot by that little tiny mistake. He probably wasn't going to get by David Surratt into the next corner anyway, so he's going to hold his line through here, try to pressure him into a mistake, and then hopefully get him down out of Le Mans into Sunset. And Bryles taking the, we'll call it the Bryles line on the outside of turn 1.
Yeah, we'll call it the Bryles path, yeah.
He's making it work for him, so one of the factors, or one of the things we keep track of in ISRA is a clean race award, a clean driver award, and that's 0 incident points. And incident points in iRacing are calculated by contacts, which will give you 4 incident points, spins or contacts with the wall, which are 2, and then off-track excursions, like you saw there, which are 1. So after you have one of those off-track excursions, you're not really as concerned with putting a wheel off here or there,
Exactly.
especially if you know you can get away with it. And a 2-hour, or nearly 2-hour race here in the dark. Not many guys will be coming out of this race unscathed, so as long as you can avoid damage, then by all means take whatever line works for you. Alright, we're going to come up to Le Mans here following Bryles following Kuzlin here. You can see John Kuzlin missed the apex by about a car width. Brett Bryles did, and you can tell the momentum as he's slowly closing up on Kuzlin. Long enough straight to get a little bit of a draft, but because there's very little braking into Sunset here, it's going to be hard to make a move, but he's going to go for it anyways. Kuzlin goes wide, Bryles goes narrow, runs wide, and 2 very different lines through Sunset,
yeah.
But they both came out about the same speed. So one of the things I really love about this track is your racecraft and how you approach the corner is it's not just a one-line racetrack. There's a lot you can do with it. So, and Bryles, nope, didn't take the Bryles line. He's trying to make a move down the inside.
Didn't quite have it there, but we can see Bryles has really got quite a quick pace. We know Kuzlin has a fast pace as well, but Bryles has really quick too, and I think Kuzlin might even be holding Bryles up a little bit there, so he'll have to see how he can quickly pass Kuzlin and try and make his way back up the field farther.
All right, now the leaders in LMP are coming up on a lot of lap traffic right now, so they just passed the GT class leader Todd Carver. I'm not sure who they're coming up against right now as they pass a GT I cannot place because they went by so fast I had no chance to identify it.
These are a couple LMPs. I can see Lance Snyder in the blue. I think that is Don Norris in the green. Don Norris is going to slow down and let them by going into turn 1. Lance Snyder, we know that he is still battling with Tim McLeish. I don't see Tim McLeish actually close to him.
Ooh.
Oh, and Lance very courteously.
Courteously or wisely there? Now, earlier you were talking about how the pit strategy was going to shake out with regards to David Surratt being ahead of Chris Dameron Jr., and it looks obviously like David Surratt must have pitted ahead of Dameron Jr.
Yeah, I think Dameron may have had 2 stops. I can't remember exactly what the quote was. I apologize for not taking proper notes about this, but I know that he had an issue with his first pit stop, which put him behind Surratt after building about a 20-second lead. So we know he has the pace, and if he can get by Surratt, he'll probably pull ahead. However, as Murray Walker says, I love to quote Murray Walker, catching a car is one thing, passing is quite another, and we're seeing that right now.
I think that quote definitely applies to Sebring because, like we've pointed out earlier in the broadcast, there are multiple lines through this circuit. It's not just it's not one fast line. Ooh, and Surratt goes wide coming out of 16.
Yeah, Dameron's going to get him here. There's no way Surratt. He's lost too much momentum. Yeah, Dameron's coming through, but let's see how Surratt attacks this corner here to see if he can pinch Dameron a little bit to the inside and maybe get a better run off the corner. As Dameron stays to the inside, Surratt's running wide. He caught the bump a little harder than he wanted there, and it looks like Dameron's got it.
Now this will be interesting to see if Surratt was holding Dameron up at all, because we know Dameron built a very hefty 20-second margin in the opening stages of the race. So let's see how this plays out. See if Surratt can stick with him.
The one thing I was noticing there too is part of the reason that Dameron was having such a hard time getting past him is it looks like David Sirois has probably about 5 to 6 kilometers an hour speed advantage. As Dameron in Sirois' draft was barely gaining on him down the straightaways, whereas Sirois coming down that front straight into turn 1 he ate up that distance by the time they got to the first corner. I know that Dameron was probably taking it a little easy going into the first corner with the GT there, but even before it would have lifted off, David Sirois was eating into that lead a lot, which will mean that through the rest of the lap, the twisty bits, basically all the way from turn 1 till you get to Le Mans turn 16, it's a pure downforce track up to that point.
So I think probably Sirois has, unless Dameron makes another mistake, I think he's probably lost the opportunity to get the victory here, because if Dameron is, even a couple seconds faster overall throughout the circuit, Sirois will never have an opportunity to catch back up and use that extra 5 kilometers an hour that he has over Dameron. So, if he can't stick with him and pass him within the next couple laps, I think we're going to see Dameron build up another hefty margin by the next string of pit stops.
Speaking of strings of pit stops, we just saw Todd Carver exit the pits in a second. Now, behind him by, 15 seconds is Matthew Voigt, but Jomar Green shown in 4th is a lap down. So really the battle in GT is down to the top 3. Daniel Gralti also being shown 2 laps down, and I don't recall what caused that. Do you guys?
Nope, 1 lap now. Looks like he's... Actually, he had a little... he slowed up a little bit when Dameron and went side by side there. I don't know if there was any contact. I didn't think there was any contact, but maybe he was struggling a little bit already at that point and didn't really get the... I don't know, took some damage on somewhere and lost a lot of speed we weren't aware of.
Likewise, James Cullen, now in 6th, shown in the pits, currently 2 laps down.
Yeah, just back to the Dameron Galtry incident. We saw Dameron get a little sideways, there was a bit of tire smoke, and that to me indicated that there was a bit of contact. Now, normally the LMP is going to take the brunt of any damage there is. I mean, it's very fragile when you compare it to a GT car, but it's quite odd to think that that little bit of contact could really cause Gralti to lose that much time, I guess, if he decided to pit and then repair damage. But to me, that seems like something else has happened to cause him to go 2 laps down.
And the reason we see them sort of swapping between 1 and 2 laps down is just because Craig Hunter is advancing a lap, and so really they are 1 and maybe a half laps down, and depending on when Craig Hunter crosses start-finish, it's showing them 2.
Also, my understanding of how the 4GT fuel works is that this should be able to get them to the end. The Corvettes, I'm honestly not sure. I really don't know in this race distance. However, I've mentioned this before. The LMP can run roughly in normal racing conditions, and I think at this track as well, about 35 minutes of green flag, roughly. So look at that time. I mean, it's going to be about 20 minutes away before we start seeing those pit stops. But if some of those LMP guys can get down to that 35-minute mark before making their last stop, they may be able to make it on 1 more stop. However, I suspect most of these drivers will have to make it in 2 additional stops.
Yeah, because we saw them pitting around an hour and 25 minutes or so left in the race, and you're really going to have to be conserving a lot of fuel to be able to make this in 2. I think you deserve an award if you can make this race in 2 in the LMP.
With Corvettes, I agree. It's going to be very, very close, and it's going to come down to, I think, the exact fuel burn. I think they're between 50 and 55 minutes, somewhere in that range. And, 100 minutes would be 2 50-minute stints, and then you throw in the pit stop in between. So that minute or 2 really makes a huge difference when it comes to whether or not they can complete it on just 1 stop.
And when you're thinking about fuel mileage, too, I know from back at Road America trying to figure out fuel mileage that the difference in speed that you have to save enough fuel isn't necessarily enough to make it up for the pit stop. I know Sebring has a much shorter pit lane than Road America ever did, However, you really have to make sure that you're not losing so much time out in the track that it makes saving that pit stop pointless. So you might as well, my strategy always is, go for it. If you can get the fuel mileage, great. If not, you just have to run your race, because the penalty for not doing it, or at least the benefit from not making that extra stop, isn't always tangible. And if you catch a yellow flag at anywhere along this process, that whole fuel saving goes right out the window, and you've really put yourself behind the 8 ball the rest of the race.
Well, the yellow flag is the big variable there, but if you think back to Suzuki, I remember that Chris Dameron Jr. lost, 3 places and ended up, I think, in 5th, due to having to take 3 stops where a bunch of other guys got by on just 2.
That was 1 stop, or 2 stops compared to the 1 stop, as I was fortunate enough to gain a podium position from starting the last lap in 5th place, and Serwa and Dameron both pitting and ending in 3rd. So that race there, the 70-minute races in the LMPs were really marginal on the fuel, and same thing here. Basically, effectively, that sort of race distance where that's a 1 stop marginal. This is even a little bit more marginal for 2 stops, but of course you have a longer distance to save a little bit more fuel.
Yeah, I like the fact that you brought up the point of do I drive slower? Do I drive off the pace that I know I can run in order to save fuel? I know for the LMP, really, right now this car is hard to save fuel, and I mean you can lower the engine map setting from 8 to low.
Slow.
He's very slow.
Maybe he ran there's an issue with fuel. Maybe he's running out of fuel right now. Who knows? I don't know if he's spun, maybe, or...
Well, he seemed to get back on... That was, quite weird, because he seemed to be getting back on the normal racing pace going into sunset, so that was quite strange. And we saw him losing speed kind of in the middle of that straightaway, so it wasn't like he half-spun the car coming out of Le Mans.
Well, he might have, but maybe what happened was he spun the car, did a 360, ended up back on line, and just decided to pull the to the inside, knowing that he was slower down the straightaway. Yeah, however, as we didn't see it, maybe he flipped the car over and landed back in his wheels. I don't know. We didn't see it, so
we'll have to go back
and
check. Very good condition for that to have happened, I think.
Yeah. If you go back to the 1993 Italian Grand Prix at Monza, Christian Fittipaldi running into his teammate at the end of the race, and to be fair, he lost his front wing and probably suffered suspension damages, but he still finished the race in a pretty much straight line. So, just saying, it could happen.
A pretty much straight line pretty much describes Monza, though, doesn't it?
That's one track that I'd like to see available to us in iRacing. I think it'd be a fantastic circuit to drive around. It'd be perfect for not necessarily multi-class racing, but definitely the higher classes, Formula 1 in particular.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see multi-class racing attempted there, though. I think that'd be quite fun to watch.
Still waiting for them to scan and release Le Mans and Nürburgring, but we'll just have to wait for those, I guess. And if anyone, the staff at iRacing, is watching our broadcast, and I'm sure you are because it is fantastic, but if you are and you want to pay me to go out to the Nürburgring and scan that, then I'll give you my contact information at the end of the race, but definitely consider it.
And me too.
Yeah, the 3 of us, hell, we'll make, we'll need the best way to do that, I believe, is to hook the scanner up to, say, I don't know, one of those new BMW M3s, M5s,
and then we'll just drive around the track all day long and hope that the scan worked.
And if it doesn't, I'll draw pictures after. I can't draw, but I'll learn. And hey, Mike Kelly is... we'll get back to the racing here. Mike Kelly is back on the tail of Chuck Chambliss. That's a battle for 5th position. David Serwa has Chris Dameron behind him again. So this is round 2 of their battle for the lead.
Let's see if Serwa can keep Dameron behind him for another 50 minutes.
I did see him run over a question mark earlier, so I don't think he has that all-important banana to slow down Chris Dameron, but if he does, then Dameron better watch out. Hopefully he has a green or red shell, because that is really, really important this midway point of the race.
Oh,
disclaimer, we don't actually have those, so if anyone's joining in just now, welcome to the race, but First of all, if you're just joining in just now, why did you start in the middle of the race? And second of all, I am clearly kidding.
Very nice pass there by Kelly.
Well, we have, after his amazing performance at Phillip Island, we really expected no less from the amazing Mike Kelly.
And Moret took a very interesting line through turn 1. Kind of makes me wonder if he's under pressure. Let's quickly check the standings. Well,
he's either under pressure or he's driving a Corvette at night at Sebring, and that thing is a beast on any track. And so I think what happened there, you get offline in one corner and then you're offline for the rest of them. So he was just doing his best to hold on and get back into his rhythm. Now, I think what you're finding here is it looks like Mike Kelly's probably got a little bit lower downforce than Chuck Chambliss, as Chuck has been able to stick right on his tail through the entire infield. Much like you see Chris Damron doing here as well. I mean, I know through a big bend here into the hairpin is a bit of a straightaway. It's not really long enough to pull up on anyone. But what you'll find here is Damron is all over him going through this section here, turn 7, 8, Fanjo into 9, which really isn't a corner. But all the way up to Le Mans, he'll be right on his tail, to which point Sirois opens up not much of a gap, and it's barely perceptible, but it's such a gap that you know that he won't be able to make a move there, as Timothy Stahl looks like he's put a lap on Gilles Moret there, so it's not a battle for position.
Gilles Moret getting sized, but you know what? That was a perfect exit.
What a drift. That is a 10 for drifting.
I'll give him 9 flags on that one. It was pretty good, but he cut off too much speed there.
You can see Damron really much faster than Sirois through the twisty bits, but there's really no room for him to get by. Sirois doing some great defensive driving, and when they get on the straight, Sirois is just that little bit faster to keep Damron behind him.
Yeah, like you noticed when we were on the onboard camera briefly, you kind of got a glimpse of it, is when Sirois was behind Damron, he was pulling up on him in the drafts. Chris Damron's in the draft, but so he has the advantage of less air being passed over his car. However, David Sirois is still pulling away down the straightaway, so you know Sirois is running much less downforce. I'm going to limb to say much less downforce than Damron, as Damron takes advantage of his higher downforce and just destroys him down the inside. David Sirois got a little bit offline, cut his speed, and Damron took full advantage, and we're up to the twisty bits of the track. I don't see any way of, aside from some traffic or a mistake from Damron, for Sirois to get that place back at this moment.
Yeah, well, we saw there was the LMP, I believe that was Ryan Corns, and then there was a Corvette there as well. So, you know, both of the cars that they were lapping were either as fast or faster than them in a straight line, and it's just Damron was able to get through the traffic that little bit better than Sirois, and that's all he needed to take advantage of his higher downforce.
So I was talking about the contrasting styles of these two drivers, and really it's not pick on either one of them, but I find that there's a lot of different. You have your aggressive drivers and your smooth and calculating drivers, and you have anywhere in between. Whereas I believe Sirois is probably on the very extreme end of like the smooth and calculating drivers, where Chris Damron he attacks the race at every opportunity. Yeah, and you can really see the advantages and disadvantages of both. Advantages being the aggressive style. When you come up on traffic, Sirois had to back out a little bit, try to get through it smoothly, where Damron attacked, found an opening, was able to get by.
Yeah, and I don't really think that's picking on either driver. I think that's, you know, a compliment to both. And Sirois getting very close to that inside wall through 17. But yeah, I don't really think that's picking on either of them. It's just each driver drives a different way, and one style works better at a particular point in time, and one might work a little bit better at another point. It's just the way that where it counts is how the driver can use their style to their advantage over his opponent.
Yeah, like I think at least here anyways, Mike Kelly behind Todd Carver, and he's going around, hopefully no contact.
Everybody avoids. Wow, that was
a
close.
Parking lot right there, but good job for Chuck and for I believe that was Stephen Clark in that car. Is that 92, 90?
Could not catch the number on that one, but
I believe it was Stephen Clark. Okay.
Was that Placio? Was that the leader?
I'm sorry, the green one. That's Eric Placio. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's lucky for him because he's a class leader by 9 seconds, so that's going to get eaten away in that avoiding action. Chambliss in the pits right now, so he's going to need one more stop for sure to make it to the end. There's no way you can go 45. Well, I shouldn't say that because there could be a yellow flag, and that would put Chuck Chambliss right back into contention for making it a one more stop. So anything can happen there. But like I was saying, and what I think I was saying is, actually, does anyone remember what I was saying? I really lost what I was.
You were talking about how Eric lost some time there, and he was in the lead.
Oh, just before that. All right, whatever. I'll think of something else later.
Here's a battle that we've seen happening in various forms throughout the race. Brent Briles trying to chase down John Kuzlin. I think these guys at one point or another have been battling with each other. This looks like Ryan. That was Chuck Chambliss exiting the pits. So him entering. This is him exiting as the race leaders will go by to put a lap on him.
Actually, I remember what I was going to talk about now because we're talking about the differing styles, and
yes,
because Damron has a bit of more of a speed advantage here than he does at some other tracks. So him and David Serrois are normally pretty close on ultimate lap times. However, if that were the case, the differences in styles during the race is Damron's able to get through the traffic a little bit better. But as you notice already in this race, he's dropped back behind David Serrois twice already when pulling out a lead. So I don't want to say the slow and steady wins a race because it's most definitely not slow, but we kind of focus on the steady part there, and I mean that's really where it comes down to. So when Damron's able to minimize his mistakes, he's tough to beat in the race. However, and unfortunately for him, he does make mistakes from time to time, and it allows some of the other drivers, David Serrois in particular, to take advantage of that. David Serrois is one of the drivers in our series who can go out on a limb, will probably win the Clean Driver Award this year because he rarely gets incidents. He rarely ever puts a wheel off, rarely makes contact with other cars. So you're going to have to really be on your game on the day to beat him. So
yeah, well, and we can see by the points that he's collected for his class. He might not have won every single race, but he has a very, very commanding lead over the LMP class simply because he's been consistent, and I think he's finished every race thus far. So, it's hard to beat consistency mixed with, the very quick speed that he has.
Yeah, he's really annoying that way.
Oh, and we're back with the battle between Brent Briles and John Kuzlin, except this time Briles has managed to get in front of Kuzlin. So that will give Briles 7th place in the LMP class as Kuzlin will try and fight his way back past.
Yeah, speaking of which, as you noticed earlier in the race, we were talking about, we'll call it the Briles line on the outside of turn 1 there. Brent's not an overly aggressive driver, but he really does push limits of cars. Oh no, is that Chambliss is off, and hopefully he's able to keep going. Looks like he is, that's good. Looks like Ryan Corrin's got by him there, but Brent Briles is a little bit more aggressive in his driving style, attacks racetrack a little bit more. John Kuzlin, on the other hand, very much in the David Serrois mode. He's very, very, very good at getting that car around, and basically, I guess the best way to put it is letting the car do the work for him. He doesn't attack the track, he doesn't stress the car. Tire wear, well, not as important in this car as it is in some other cars. It's still important to be able to manage your car through an entire run. And John Kuzlin does that better than most. So although Brent Briles will get past him here, that's not necessarily how this is going to play out by the end of the race. So watch for that battle to continue at 40 minutes to go right now. 41 minutes to go. And Stephen Clark looks like he just got passed by a rocket ship there, but that was actually another car. I believe that was that Tim Stahl lapping Stephen?
I'm going to say yes.
I saw lights and it went by real fast, so it's just looking at my monitor there, and I think that's what this is all about. But back on board with Kuzland as we're coming through Cunningham, heading towards the sharp right-hander right now is turn 13, which is Tower, and that's a fun one, even at night, because it's kind of a very blind corner. You kind of have to hit the apex late and let the car slide through it, down the back straight through Bishop, and we're off Kuzland now, but I mean, that's a good onboard. I mean, it'd be nice to see. Oh no, it's Cullen. Or no, is that? Yes, it is. Cullen. It's James Cullen. So luckily he didn't hit anything. He'll get the car started again, turn around, but he's losing a lot of time, and he's down in 6th place right now, and I think this is the biggest separation he's had from Todd Carver, so Todd really looking to capitalize on this, as I'm just noticing right now that our Australian friend, I don't what the heck am I talking about? Australian friend, Craig Hunter, is leading the Ford GT by 7 seconds over Todd Carver. So,
yeah, that's interesting to see that GT battle is playing out, because we saw earlier in the race we had Carver leading, and then followed by Craig Hunter and then James Cullen. Well, James Cullen has had a few problems, I think mostly spins like we just saw, and he's dropped back to be 2 laps down off the leaders. So Craig Hunter at some point was able to get by Todd Carver for the lead, and obviously opened up a good 8-second gap to him.
And actually, just as I noticed that, I'm going to quickly just pinpoint some of the standings. You can see through the ticker at the top of the screen, but have gone unnoticed by myself in particular. But Timothy Stahl, one of the perennial frontrunners in the C6R Corvette, is in 4th place, about 4 seconds behind John Middleton, but 51 seconds behind race leader Eric Palacio. He's got an unassailable lead at the top of the Corvette, and I fear he's phoning it in now. So hopefully he can take 38 minutes and see if he can bring that Corvette up a little bit up the standings there. But I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb here and say that I'm a little disappointed in his performance today. So, yeah, Tim, you're going to need to really shape it up. Otherwise, you're not going to win the championship by 100 points this year if this 4th place stuff keeps coming up.
Yeah, there's 5 races, or 4 races left. You need to have the championship won before the season is over.
And we're going to maybe rename this segment Brian Unnecessarily Calls It Another Driver, brought to you by Z1 SimWheel, a sponsor of ISRA GTC series. Yeah, last race I was kind of picking on Trevor Hill there due to some of his offs at VIR, so he showed me and jumped into the Corvette. Now I don't know where the heck he is, and actually, is he even still in the race right now? I don't know. I don't see him in the top 10.
No,
so
I have him in 12th place, but 25 laps down, so I'm going to say that he has retired that car.
See, up until now, I went over an hour without really mentioning that, so I am improving, and Trevor, unfortunately, out of the race there, but I know he'll be back strong for the next race. He's a fellow Canadian like myself, so I shouldn't pick on him too hard, as we see Jerry Mooresdorf, not Canadian, I'll point out, coming out of the pit here as Ryan Corns comes by, and it looks like Ryan's taken that place, which I believe is for 8th. So Mooresdorf's come out at 9th place with Ryan Corns in his sights, so 36.5 minutes left for Mooresdorf. That is going to be close for fuel. Possible he can make it to the end, but I'm going to guess he's going to need to make a splash, as Carlos Passos looks like he's coming into the pits here. Again, these guys are, they are right on it. They're going to be finishing this race on fumes if they so choose. Carlos is going to stop by the time the pit stop shakes itself out. Going to be looking at roughly just over 35 minutes, and I don't think that's enough. That is going to be close. I mean, if anyone comes in the next lap, they may be able to make it to the end, but those 2 guys there, it's going to be touch and go, and that's going to be worth a lot of places, as Muniz in 5th place right now is battling with Carlos, and I mean that could be huge. Mike Kelly up in 3rd place, Sirois, Damron look like they could make this on one more stop. So,
well, just judging by I've been kind of keeping an eye on the time and scoring for our LMP class, and I can tell you that Damron and Sirois and Muniz have all pitted. Kelly has not pitted yet. Passos is in the pits right now. Kuzland and Briles haven't pitted. So Eventually, I think we're going to cycle back around to Damron leading, followed by Serwa, followed by Muniz and Passos, and then Bryles and Kuzland. I think that'll be the top 7. So it's going to be really tight, I think. A lot of these guys may be pitted maybe 1 or 2 laps a bit too early, and this looks like, is this Ryan Corns? Yes, it is. So this is Ryan Corns. He's running in 8th right now, and he's going to jump in the pits. I think he'll definitely be able to make it without having to take a splash at the in the last final laps.
Yeah, just knowing from the fuel mileage that we did before the race, Ryan Corns is actually a teammate of mine in this series and helping with the fuel mileage, knowing that by stopping right at the 35-minute mark, he is, depending on how the leader shakes out, and that's really, really important, because if the leader catches the checkered flag at just the right time, that's fine. But this is a very long lap, and if he gets that one more lap, if he, catches the line with, like, say, 5 seconds left, he's going to go around for an additional 2 minutes, and that's going to make the difference between making it on one stop or making it on the stop and not making it. So Ryan Corns probably the first of the drivers, I think, who could make it without any help from yellows.
Some of it also might come down to what kind of fuel mileage these guys are getting. If I know from the past races that Damron has complained many times that he seems, for some reason, I don't know, it could be his more aggressive driving style that we've mentioned earlier, but he seems to consistently get worse fuel mileage than the majority of the other LMP drivers, and so I think that will also play a part in when these guys can pit and then make it to the end.
David mentioned it before, Kuzlin did not morph through that car. Well, no, I should say, yes, he did. He did morph through that car, but perfectly normal. Part of, as I was mentioning before in an earlier segment of the race, about the latency issue in online racing, in order to alleviate the congestion that we have in the pits, anything inside of that line, I can't remember what color line it is, but there's a line to kind of denote where the pit lanes are on the inside, and what that does is you're able to drive through other cars to avoid unnecessary contact in the pits, because I assure you, in real life it's hard enough. Doing it in online racing, it'd just be absolute chaos every time you went through a pit stop. So
yep, and the pits at Sebring are tight enough as it is, so just that little bit of that ability to morph. Oh, and this is Damron. We talked about it earlier, guys. His more aggressive driving style has allowed Serwa to get by him a few times, and there goes Serwa back up into first. So Serwa's race, or his quest for first, is not over yet.
It's almost like a cautionary tale, isn't it? Like the tortoise and the hare. I mean, I'm not calling Serwa a tortoise, because he's definitely not, but it seems like that's the dynamic we're following right now.
And really, I'm pretty sure that Damron had managed to put a fairly large lead over Serwa. I mean, he has a 24-second lead over third place driver Anthony Muniz, and so he had to have had at least. Oh, and this is John Middleton going very wide into the hairpin. It looked like a little bit of contact there with Todd Carver, who's running second place in Ford GT. So
yeah, and John just lost position to Tim Stahl because of that. He was being very aggressive with Todd Carver, who's in a battle of his own. However, John Middleton trying to fight for a podium there, and unfortunately it looks like he's lost out to Timothy Stahl, who obviously heard me egging him on and decided to start moving forward.
Yeah, I was about to point that out. Seems to have stepped it up. But yeah, back to Damron. I don't really see any reason for him to be pushing as hard as he was, because I'm sure that he had at least a good 10 seconds over Serwa before he spun. So that, I hate to say, I hate to give drivers like him, this is what you should do, because obviously he's able to win races. He's a very quick driver. Oh, and this is Middleton. He spins in
stuck
16.
It up the inside of Stahl by doing that, and that's what happens.
Yeah. Able to get going again fairly quickly, but we'll have to see what kind of damage that he's taken.
Without knowing John's thoughts on the matter, I mean, the way I'm looking at that is Timothy Stahl, championship pretty much set. Right now, Eric Palacio is the race leader. John Middleton, between 4th and 3rd place, I mean, you want to be on the podium. Finishing 4th, 5th, almost whatever. I mean, if you get the chance to take that podium, you're going to take it. And I think John saw that as his only opportunity to retake that position. It didn't work out for him there, but I think he'll be okay in the knowledge knowing that he went for it. Even if it ends this race right now, if there's damage, which I don't think there is enough to end his race at least anyway, he's not regretting that decision to go for it there.
Yeah, and he's still, Middleton has a good 40-second lead over the 5th place driver of Marty Jeffries. So, I mean, he did lose time, but especially against Stoll, but he's not really in danger of losing a position in his own class. So,
and one thing I'm going to put out there with Chris Damron, which I'm again just surmising, but it seems plausible. Not so much his aggressive driving, which is more of a his aggressiveness is more of a kind of a racing aggressiveness as opposed to a driving aggressiveness, because he's still a very smooth driver. However, this could be a kind of a car setup issue, because I know from my own experience, setting up for this course is very difficult. A lot of the tracks, the rule is you want the car to run as low as possible to get the most downforce, the most grip. However, at Sebring, you really have to compromise between running it low to the ground and adjusting it for the bumps. And I think Chris has gone to the side of going for his most downforce, making his car more susceptible to losing it on the bumps, which is more than likely what happened there, because I was going through Sunset and he just did a 360, something I've done numerous times in testing, and most of the times is you catch a bump wrong. And if he's going for ultimate speed, it's, as far as setup goes anyway, that's probably where it comes from.
Well, and we know that he's definitely got the pace over, or the speed over Serrois, so you know that definitely would fall in line with what we're seeing in the race. Maybe he's was a little bit too aggressive with his setup, and like you said, we don't really know exactly what's happened because we missed the first 2 times, the first 2 incidents that he had, but if that incident we just saw a couple laps ago is anything to judge by, it very well could be a setup issue that he's having.
Yeah, because it kind of fits with what we were talking about earlier, is how David Serrois is able to pull ahead down the straightaways. And automatically you think of that as an aerodynamic issue, a downforce issue. It might not even be that. If Chris Damron is running the car lower to the ground, because it's such a bumpy track, you're going to get friction on that under tray, and it's going to cut your top speed. What it's going to do, though, is most of this track here, basically from the exit of turn 1, like basically from turn 2 all the way to Le Mans, you're not really bottoming the car, so that doesn't come into play. So that's where Damron's quickest. However, going down the Allman straightaway, through Sunset, through that straightaway, through turn 1, the car's hitting the ground, and you're going to lose top speed, as well as to make the car more unstable. So that's where Serrois is getting the main advantage. Chris Damron is getting an advantage the rest of the track. And thinking about it now, the rest of the track, obviously, is the rest of the track, and it's, holy jeez, Chambliss is off again. Is he off the wall? I think he is.
I think he kept it off the tires.
Holy jeez, that caught me by surprise, because I wasn't really looking at the screen at the time. I was looking at my track map. And, but what I was saying is, as Chuck Chambliss rights the car straight away and keeps going again, that from turn 2 all the way to turn 16, that's, you know, those 15 corners, Damron's car is going to be faster. So, drivers being equal, everything being equal, his car is faster, but it's harder to control. Combine that with their respective driving styles, and I think that accounts for what you're seeing here. Serrois in lead, Damron chasing him for the 3rd time.
Another reason that we watched Serrois able to hold off Damron for so long is because Serrois has that little bit higher top speed, and then especially when he gets on the straights, even in the draft, Damron's not really able to pull up and try and make a move on him. It's just because of this, it's definitely not a tight course, but it's very technical, and really you have to have, with drivers of their caliber, and they're not making mistakes, you really have to have the assistance of some traffic, which we've seen happen, I believe, in the second time that Damron was able to get around Serrois. And so he's just, I think right now what his plan is, okay, I had a spin, but I know I can recover from it. I'll just stick right on him and wait for a bit of traffic where I know that I can get around a little bit faster because I have this higher grip, especially on the back part of the course. So really what he needs to do, he's got 25 minutes. That's still a long time in this race. So he's got 25 minutes to be able to find that opportunity. And you can see he's still sticking right with them.
Watch the lines through turn 1 again. Damron's going to go right to the wall. Oh, no, he isn't. He got a little bit loose there, so he didn't. So you don't see that speed advantage here. But it's from this point of the track all the way on that Damron's going to have the advantage. And he could be using this Corvette like Anthony just said. Stephen Clark, you use him as a pick and see if he can get by. Really not a lot of space here to do that. And, yep, no, he's going to let him by there. And Damron could have a chance under braking here going into the hairpin. I wouldn't bet on it, though, because it's a very short braking distance, even for a hairpin. And as you can see there, no, he's backed off. He's going to have to wait for another opportunity. Well, the other thing, too, you can notice is if it was strictly a downforce issue with regards to the top speed, when Damron gets in the draft, you should expect him to keep pace, if not pull up a little bit.
Yeah.
And to add to my theory that it's more of a ride height issue and the car's scraping, is even though he's in the draft, he's kind of got a terminal velocity of a certain amount because the speed you get to, it's pushing the car down to the track, causing friction in the bottom, and you're really slowing the car down. Which is something that I've discovered in testing, is that the speed of the car is, the downforce and drag is important. It's not just aero drag, there's a lot of other factors, rolling drag as well as car scraping drag, as Damron is all over him going through the lawns here and see if he can get a run. See, watch this, going to the straightaway here. He should be pulling up on Serwa at downforce levels, and he's not. Serwa's pulling ahead. He's not going to be close enough into sunset. Watch him through sunset if we stay on board with him. We're not going to stay on board with him. Oh, Jesus, director. On board.
So we can see he does pull up coming out of the corner, and then he'll be right on the back of him, and then through turn 1, I think Damron's able to get through. And again, this is a traffic situation. Let's see if Serwa can hold him off this time. Yeah, he looks like he will. The Corvette went wide, allowed him to take the inside line. But we saw a couple times where Damron was able to close right back up on the back of Serwa through turn 1, and part of that is he's got more grip because through that first corner, there's still bumps, but it's less bumpy, I guess you would say, than, say, turn 17 or something.
Yeah, it's more knife edge. At least turn 17 sunset, you have a little bit more room to work with, and it doesn't catch you by surprise as much. But one thing I'm noticing here too is from our day race earlier in the season, I was racing against Chris Damron, chasing him for first place early in the race, and I was right on his tail going through turn 1, and that was the area I was gaining the most time on him. Where it seems that's the area he's gaining the most time on David Serwa, is coming out of turn 1 going into turn 2, which if he's able to time that right, which he looks like he might have going into a certain corner, which I believe is Cunningham. Maybe? No? Tower? Yeah, that was Tower. We're in Bishop now, so...
It's a corner.
It was a right-hand corner of some fashion. I believe it's Sebring. It's hard to tell. I don't know where these guys ended up now because I couldn't really see.
And traffic playing a part again here. There's a couple Corvettes. This will be interesting to see if... Well, never mind. It won't be interesting because we're going to switch battles, but this is...
Still could have been interesting, but it looks like Mike Kelly is trying to, well, nothing, because he's a lap down from Anthony Muniz at this point, so it is, who, again, familiar with his work from the commentary booth here, is running a very respectable third place between the main protagonist, Serwa and Damron. Also, I'd like to point out, too, coming off his first ever iRacing victory at the 2.4 hours at Daytona, driving the Ford Mustang. So congratulations to Anthony on that one. That was quite a race, and if you'd like to find that, I'm sure we can provide the link on this YouTube feed to that excellent bit of video production. Oh, and there it is. Damron's ahead of Serwa. Didn't see it happen. I'm sure it was awesome.
I'm gonna go ahead and take a guess that it was when Serwa is challenging on the outside going into the hair turn, or the hairpin turn. But definitely not going to be able to make a move there. Damron easily has the advantage on the inside. But I'm willing to bet that Damron was able to get by Serwa on the inside of turn 1, like we saw him do the previous time that he was able to get by. I think he just seems so much faster in that corner than Serwa, and especially if you happen to mix in a bit of traffic, I think that's where he was able to get by.
Sim Racing Network teammates going hard right there. So no team orders among those guys, as you can see they're similarly painted cars and similar driving speeds, but Ryan Huff getting past Marty Jeffries for, we'll call it 5th place. I believe it's actually 5th place.
It is 5th place.
Good to know I'm just not randomly assigning positions to people. Stephen Clark in 36th place, or 9th. One of the two.
One of those, yeah. And then here's another battle for, well, it used to be a battle. Looks like Chills Murat was able to pull out a bit of distance over Stephen Clark. But this is the battle for 8th right here. A little bit back down the running order. But really, in GT1, there's not much action going on up in the front. Eric Palacio has a good 16-second lead over Don Hunter in 2nd, and 53-second lead over Timothy Stoll in 3rd. So really, this is probably some of the best action in GT1 that we have on circuit right now.
Yeah, looking at the 4GT, there's not a lot of really close battles right now. David Serwa in the LMP is still within about a second of Chris Dameron, so that fight isn't over yet. And then the rest of the guys, very unentertainingly, are about 10 seconds apart of each other. So, little disappointed in their performance towards the end of the race there. We expect more excitement out of them, however. It's not their job to entertain me. It's their job to run their best race, and that's how things have shaken out. So, that said, Ryan Corns in 10th place is 2 seconds behind Mike Kelly in 9th. So, Mike Kelly, after that earlier charge to the front, unfortunately has dropped back to 9th, and looks like Ryan's about to make a move on him, judging by the gaps I could see on the screen here. He's been closing that gap pretty significantly over the last lap. So,
yeah. Well, I think when we saw Mike Kelly earlier being lapped, I thought I spotted some damage on his car.
There he is right there.
Yeah, let's see if we can see. I think, look on the nose of that car. I think there's a little bit of damage, and that could be the reason. Oh, yeah, no, we're going to go on board with Ryan Corns. So we were just talking about Corns. He's going to be, let's watch the battle and see if he can't make a move on what's one of the many nicknames we have for Mike Kelly, the Pass King, I don't know, something, Outside King. Yeah, I think
if you guys are interested, down in the comment sections below this video here, if you want to think of a good nickname for Mike Kelly, we'll be taking the best ones. We reserve the right to pick them, as we have to say them. But if anyone has any suggestions, then I'm not sure if Stephen Clark, after that little pass there, will have any one of those for them.
Yeah, I think he will. I think there's a bit of contact there, so that's going to
keep it clean, boys. It's going to be a family broadcast, so Stephen, watch it.
Sure, Ryan Corns in that number 5 LMP isn't complaining at all. That's helping him to close the gap up to Mike Kelly, and any little bit of damage that he's got. Oh, and that was smart on Ryan Corns' part to use the Corvette as a drafting partner. You can see it worked perfectly to allow him to get around Mike Kelly.
Yeah, Mike's got damage in the front there.
Yeah.
This is a pretty cool dynamic camera. I haven't seen this one before. And Chopper coming out of the pits here, so should use that one more often. That's a pretty good view.
This is the 47 of Marty Jeffries. He's currently running in 7th place in GT1. And this is Evgeny Garenin. This is not Tim Stoll. I know they look basically identical, but this is Evgeny Garenin in the number 10 Corvette, and he's chasing down Stephen Clark in that 92. Looks like he was able to get going even despite that half spin and contact we saw a little bit earlier with Mike Kelly. Doesn't seem to have affected him too much. Ooh, and Passo's really taking a deep look for looks like he backs off, but that was quite ambitious to try and get around Evgeny going breaking that deep into that corner.
In Carlos' defense, though, too, some of these corners, sometimes you, I mean, even in the best of circumstances in day races, you're not going to be able to judge that braking effectively, especially if you haven't come up for one of these cars in a while.
Yeah,
and it comes back to, too, what I said about knowing each one of your drivers. In the dark, it's really hard to identify at a glance who you're coming up on all the time. As you see, again in Guerin, it's pretty obvious that's Stephen Clark in the number 92 there. However, if you don't know maybe he's damaged, so maybe he came up with him last time and he broke in a certain spot. But now that he's damaged, he's breaking a lot earlier. So Carlos Paso is doing a very good job to stick his nose in there. But when we realized that wasn't going to come off, able to back out, try again later and get by cleanly.
Yeah, that's racing with intelligence when you know that, okay, well, I tried this move, I know it's definitely not going to work, and if I keep trying to force the move, it's going to end with, some sort of incident. So back off, try again in a couple corners later, and get by cleanly. So that was a intelligent move on Carlos's part.
And again, just another note for those kind of distinguishing the difference between real-life racing and iRacing. Well, some people have expensive racing rigs with multiple screens, gives you a wide field of view, such as our colleague Daniel Coroni here. Some of us only have one screen, to our humble means, and what that means as far as sim racing goes is knowing where your car is and relative position is kind of hard to determine in sim racing. Sim racing has come a long way in the years to give you kind of a more immersive feel into what you're doing, but you're still running with limitations, and some guys unfortunately have more limitations than others with knowing where you are in the track, and it's really, really important to give room and know when to back off, because I know from my experience in real life racing, the awareness you have is kind of surprising. I come from a karting background in particular, where they don't have mirrors, they don't have anything else, but you learn from sound and just feel, and you sense it. I mean, you're using your actual senses, but it's almost like a sixth sense where you just know where everything is.
Definitely.
You don't quite get that in the sim racing. You approximate that, and you get pretty good at it. You get used to your limitations, and I guess getting used to your limitations is the best way to put it. But long story short, good situational awareness by Stephen Clark, by Carlos Passos, and everyone else involved in that to get through that without any contact, because very often you'll see contact in those situations.
And for more situational awareness in sim racing, the answer to that is buy more screens. Such as set up with, I think, 5 or 6 that I've seen somewhere floating around on YouTube. You can look it up. It's quite amazing. I'm very jealous.
Yeah, so again, to those anonymous benefactors out there from iRacing, from wherever, who see this video and like what we're doing, you can contact, well, Daniel's already got one, so forget about him. But Anthony and myself, you can contact us, and if you want to sponsor us to give us better equipment, that'd be much appreciated. In the meantime, we're going to jump back to, well, Stephen Clark. We were with ISRA earlier, and Stephen Clark is unfortunately going around, and that's going to be the wall.
I had a feeling that he might have been fighting a bit of damage, because he seemed to be definitely quite tail-happy going through some corners, and I think that's just the result of that. Unfortunately, he's added even more Corvette, so hopefully he can get around for 12 more minutes. I mean, the race is coming to a close now, finally.
Maybe he was just trying to even it out to cure a mishandling car.
Beat the other side to make the first problem better, yeah.
Now, unfortunately, I didn't catch a lot of the real-life 12 Hours of Sebring, but when I was getting into the endurance racing back in the late 90s, watching the Le Mans, when Speed Vision at the time was carrying the race live, I was always amazed at these multi-million-dollar prototype sports cars, all the technology that goes into that's involved. They still come into the pits, and what they do, they break out the sledgehammers and the duct tape. I mean, it's really it's funny how that sort of stuff works out. I mean, you spent aero wind tunnel testing the whole bit, and it comes down to duct tape.
Well, with the unfortunate departure of Peugeot this season, there wasn't much competition for Audi in the 12 Hours of Sebring, but there was plenty of racer tape going on some of the GT cars for this year's 12 Hours of Sebring. That was a great race. If you haven't seen it, I suggest watching it in parts if you can't spend a whole 12 hours at once.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've got on in life and the ability of myself to lock myself in a room for 12 hours and watch racing, which I would gladly do. However, being a part of this ISRA league, again sponsored by Z1 Simwheel, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor and.
Definitely, they make a great product.
They do make a great product.
Yeah, if you haven't checked them out, go to z1simwheel.com. They offer a great range of products. Mostly these really, really great sim wheels it's with either the SLI Pro, which is more of the Formula One style display, or an LCD screen that sits in the steering wheel, but something similar to what you would see on, say, like a Le Mans prototype car. So also have the you can also buy the LCD screen as just a separate unit. So if you don't want to buy a wheel, or if your wheel isn't compatible, you can get just a screen and use that in part of your cockpit. So go and check them out at z1simwheel.com.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised. I mean, I've been part of sim racing. I know Anthony is a few years younger than me, so he's relatively new to the sim racing experience, but I've been at this back since the IndyCar racing days, online since Grand Prix Legends, and the technology has gone from me having a T2 Thrustmaster wheel, which is basically like a piece of plastic with a little bit of rubber on the outside, a couple of pedals with a few pointometers on them to kind of figure things out where you're cleaning them with WD-40 and whatnot, to as our colleague Daniel Crony here, who has unfortunately been quiet for the last little while, has he does broadcast these races live, where you get linked from his page, his YouTube channel, Sim Racing Dan, and you get a good idea of what is capable, and you watch his rig and see what's involved with the sim experience seat that he has. As crazy as his rig is, and the three screens and that rig, technology has jumped even in the year or so since he's got that, and you'd be amazed at what is possible now. I mean, we're getting to the point where it's almost indistinguishable between being in the real race car and still a fraction of the cost, even though they are getting quite pricey. And I mean, the sky's the limit almost right now what you can do with your sim racing, where 10, 15 years ago, when sim racing was in its infancy, it really wasn't a sky. It was it was bare basic. You're pretty down to the earth on that, and it's good to see what's developed. I mean, coming from both the sim racing and a real life racing background, the divide between both of them is shrinking by leaps and bounds. So obviously our sponsor Z1 Sim Wheel, but a lot too is, as you can see on the screen here, iRacing.com motorsport simulations. They've really come a long way with the product that they offer, and if by chance you've come across this independently of some other YouTube search, or someone has pointed you here, I mean, this is it's really a good experience to get into. If you have any sort of desire to go racing and you've never been able to before, check out the website. They have a bunch of good guides on how to get started, what kind of equipment you can start with. The cost seems a little bit prohibitive for people experienced with various gaming platforms, especially if you're just a racer, but really, for what you pay for and what you get, this is really second to none, and you can kind of see it shown here as we're following on board with Chuck Chambliss in what's a relatively photorealistic simulation of Chuck driving around Sebring from his home in Alabama all the way down to Florida. And as he's going past James Cullen here, who's plugging away in 6th place in the Ford GTs, trying to take as many points as he can away, but just more of a kind of shout out to the sim racing community in general. It's something that those of you who are just watching this race should really look into and check out. It's really quite the experience.
Yeah, just to kind of tack on a little bit at the end of that little shout out, I really think that right now we're kind of in what's called, and there is contact between Chambliss, and I don't know who that was, I couldn't see, but it might have been another GT car. Chambliss is quite slow. Oh, no, that looks like Carlos Paso, so I'm not sure if the contact was with him, but that is putting a lap on him. But yeah, just back to kind of sim racing in general, I think we're really in like a golden age almost right now for sim racing. Technology has really, really come a long way. A lot of things are becoming more affordable now. You can build a PC that can easily run iRacing or other various simulations for really relatively inexpensive. I mean, you can go all out extreme, but you don't have to, and you can start small and build on. And if you aren't on iRacing, or if you are on iRacing and haven't checked out our league yet, go ahead and visit ISRA league.com. And if you're just starting out, sign up on the forums and kind of get to know everyone. There's plenty of guys on there that'll help you out and really kind of get you sorted with what you're going to need to get started. So check us out at israleague.com.
Yeah, and I know Daniel, when he's puts this video up, and I know he does already, but at the bottom of this video here, there'll be links to our ISRA League, links to his other videos where he actually does live race commentary from in the seat. Unfortunately, this race was a little short as he had an incident in the first quarter of the race, but it really gives you a good idea of what's actually involved. And as you can see here, I mean, we're watching this, we're going through. This is the first race I've commentated on that I haven't been a part of, so I'm looking at it from a purely spectator point of view, and it's, I'm not going to go out on a limb and say that it's, of the equivalent of real life racing, because let's be honest, it's not, but it's damn close. And watching this on here is, it's getting close to like the next best thing, and that next best thing is getting a hell of a lot closer than it used to be.
Definitely. Yeah, and if you haven't checked out Dan's onboard videos, and he has quite a number of them, not from just this season, but from previous ISRA seasons. It really kind of shows you some of the what's going on with a driver throughout these races, and it really gives a good depiction of really what sim racing is, I guess. It really shows a good progression at the start of the race, be conservative, be a little bit more conservative, and then at the end of the race, all right, I'm really gonna push now to catch this guy, and then eventually get by. Or they're really great videos. So if you haven't checked those out, if you only watch these, I definitely recommend checking those out.
I'd just like to bring us back to the races quickly here. I just noticed Jerry Morsdorf coming out of the pits with about 4 minutes and 50 seconds left. I had noted earlier he had made a pit stop, I believe, at about 36 and a half minutes.
Yeah, he's one of the guys that we thought would be able to make it.
Yeah, and maybe, because I don't have his fuel levels handy with me right now, maybe he just knew he wasn't going to make it and decided to pit stop now because of traffic or whatever. But it's possible he was running out of fuel and needed to make that pit stop. So some of those guys we thought were marginal, I think are even more marginal right now. Guys like Ryan Corns, for instance, and I remember I can't remember who else was in the mix there, but probably Brent Ryle is actually one of them.
Most of the leaders, Damron, Serwa, Muniz, Passos, I think Riles was one of them. Those guys all pitted before Jerry Morsdorf did, so we haven't seen any of those top guys dive into the pits yet, but if Morsdorf had to dive in, I almost expect the rest of those guys to dive in as well.
I'm pretty sure that Damron and Serwa and possibly Muniz, but I'm not sure if all pitted already. Anthony, I don't know if you can kind of fill us in. We're about 3 minutes left if you've actually entered the pits yet or not.
I'm going to go ahead and say that I haven't, and I don't think I will. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I don't. It's been a while since I've done this race, and I should remember, but I don't. I will keep an eye on the timing and scoring and give a quick up shout in when that happens. But with 2 minutes and 37 seconds left, I don't think I pitted with this amount of time left. We will see. I could be completely wrong, though. Who knows?
Well, as you can see there, as we were falling on board with Tim McLeish, just as we got on board with him, he was pretty much perpendicular to the racing line going through turn one. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but he entered that really shallow and did a good job to catch that back up and keep going. Not sure where his buddy Lance Stent. Oh, no,
he's right in front of him, yeah. These guys,
of course he is.
Well, they got separated for a little while there during the middle portion of the race, but with just under 2 minutes. Oh, and we've got the white flag. White flag has just been thrown, so getting down to the very last bit for McLeish to be able to get by Snyder, and they got separated for a while there. Looks like McLeish has been able to catch back up to Snyder. Let's see if he can't get around for the pass for 11th. Oh, just a shout out. Passos currently being shown in the pits. Still the top three, Damron, Serwa, and Muniz are not been in yet, so they all remain the same.
So we started the first quarter of the race with Tim McLeish and Snyder. Looked like we're going to end it, but now we're with Mike Kelly and Carlos Passos. Carlos Passos is lapping Mike Kelly. And even if Muniz needs to make a pit stop, it looks like he's got third place pretty much covered from Passos. So David Serwa, 28 seconds behind the leader as we rejoin the what up to a point, seemed to be the only battle on the track. Snyder and McLeish. I think we're going to start selling Snyder and McLeish t-shirts soon. Maybe find those in the future at ISRA League.com. Almost couldn't say that, but yeah, we're coming up to the last lap here. I don't know exactly where Chris Damron is on the track right now, but looks like he should be coming up to the checkered flag any moment now. And from a personal point of view, I know that Chris Damron was, I had pulled away from him in the championship. I moved up to third place, but with my unfortunate ability not to start this race, with a win by Damron should bring us pretty much right back together for third place in points.
And there it is. Damron able to pull out the victory over Serwa by a good 27 seconds.
And you can just hear Dan pop in there. He's not dead. He's still here with us, so... Maybe Anthony and I kind of took over the mic there, but maybe if Dan, you could run down the final finishing order as they happen.
All right. Well, obviously we've got Chris Damron Jr. with the win in LMP, and David Swab, you can see finishing second here. Jerry Morsdorf lap downs, and as well Lance Snyder, so they won't be scored quite yet. And we're looking for a green Corvette in GT1. And it looks like that will fill out the LMP finishing grid. So we have third in LMP, Anthony Muniz, well done.
Thank you.
Then we've got Carlos Passos fourth, Brent Browse fifth, John Kuzland, then Jerry Morsdorf, Ryan Corms, Chuck Chambliss, Mike Kelly, and Lance Snyder, and finally Tim McLeish is the final running LMP. I'm sorry, actually, I think Don Norris is the actual final running LMP. Finally, Don Hunter winning for the GT1 class, followed by Eric Palacio, Timothy Stoll, John Middleton, Ryan Huff, and Mike Taylor. Then Evgeny Gurerin and Stephen Clark. And in for GT, we have Craig Hunter with the win, and Todd Carver coming in second. Then, let's see, we have Matthew Voigt, Daniel Gralty, Jomar Green, and James Cullen. So, in terms of points, the not a whole lot of change. David Swap picking up, I think it's 23 points for a second place finish, whereas Chris Damron Jr. got the full 25. So essentially no movement on that front. GT1, well, Timothy Stoll wasn't quite good enough, but still good enough to keep his place. Although you can see the Don Hunter Marty Jeffries battle is a lot closer thanks to that win by Hunter.
Did Hunter get Palacio at the line there? Because Palacio is leading from flag to pretty much right at the end there.
If there was a better battle, it may not have. But here we can see, finally, the biggest gap we've ever seen here in this series in GT2 between Todd Carver and James Cullen. And that's for James Cullen's 6th place finish. Well, I think that ends our race, and let you guys wrap up. Oh, well, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we are going to be at Infineon on March 19th, which was yesterday. So look for that video next week.
And we got Brands Hatch, which is a very, very tight but fun track to drive. Watkins Gun Cup, the stock car version, the shorter version of a track we've been to earlier this year. And then finally our Petite Le Mans at Road Atlanta to round out the year.
All right, any closing thoughts on this race here?
I think we saw a few incidents, but really there was some great racing going on between all battles. I know we kind of spaced out there towards the end, but that's just kind of the nature of the long endurance races. So great driving by all of our participants, and thanks for giving us a great show to watch.
And Anthony means by spaced out, we mean the gaps, not us actually spacing out. I mean, well, Dan kind of spaced out for a little bit there, but yeah, no, I thought it was a great race by a lot of people. Don Hunter, if he was able to catch that Corvette win, that's, I mean, heartbreaking for Palacio, but good for Don Hunter to get another win there. But the battle between Serrois and Damron was it was fun to watch them going back and forth like that, as well as my colleague Anthony Muniz picking up his first podium in ISRA. So congratulations there.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, on behalf of Z1 Simweo and ISRA League, I'd like to thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next one.